Welcome into the Bears Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and let's take a look at the biggest positives and negatives for the Bears as they head into the bye week.
Taylor Dahl here, host of Making Monsters. Let's chat a little bit about that third down offense and defense that has been making some big plays recently.
And I'm Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears, and there's going to be a new starting left tackle after the bye week. A lot to break down.
Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears Squad. Everything Chicago Bears every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Windy City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From Soldier Field to the next great chapter, the Bears Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Bears Squad Show. Joe, Taylor, and Lauren here with you for the next hour. Lots to get into. The Bears are at the bye week. We're going to talk about where they can improve the most, the positives, the negatives. I'm going to throw some names at these guys that maybe will be a little bit of a surprise of maybe how the Bears could improve the running back position throughout the season. But they're making a change. The Bears are going to have a new left tackle coming out of the bye week when they play the Washington Commanders. Lauren, we'll start with your reaction. Are you surprised? And how do you feel about the decision that the Ben Johnson's making going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised when he made the change mid-game against the Raiders, but now it's not so surprising, that they're going to stick with that change. I kind of feel like I'm not sure that Theo Benedict is going to provide some like massive upgrade. Like I think it may end up being a little bit more of a lateral move, but I can understand that. If you're already envisioning that, hey, Braxton Jones is going to be gone next offseason anyway, like he's going to walk in free agency, why not then give the opportunities to a young player that you think is going to be around for a little while who can learn and develop and grow? And as long as he's not worse than Braxton Jones, then you might as well invest in the longer-term future by having him out there.
Yeah, I think that when you're a move like this, I agree with Lauren, and I don't think all of a sudden we're going to be like, oh, wow, we have a top 5 left tackle in the NFL. I don't think it's going to happen that way. But you also don't know, and you're not going to be able to improve as a left tackle if you're not out there either. So with that being said, if he does feel like it is that a lateral move or the same, and maybe he sees a higher ceiling for Theo this year and maybe feeling like getting some game day reps and being out there will benefit him, which – it's a little scary because that left tackle has been an issue here, and it's something that we want resolved. But I don't think you can even start to come to an answer if you don't try somebody else there. And I think what they were able to do, obviously Theo on the left side, and then once they put Ozzie on the right side, it didn't look, I mean, it was terrifying the first half. I was like, this is going to be a long day. Max was doing absolutely anything and everything he could to the Bears offensive line and to Caleb Williams. And that did change a little bit in the second half. I think some of that was scheming and things that Ben Johnson and company did offensively, but I also think that those guys held their own against Max, who, like I said, I mean, it was like tip pass, interception, forced fumble. It was just one thing after another. So to limit that and hold it back from what it looked like the first half, I think you have to give kudos to both those guys. So I'm not surprised he's moving that way.
Yeah, I think it's the right decision for kind of everything you guys said. Braxton Jones isn't going to be a Bear in the long-term future. We'll see about the near future. I'm curious. So I think this is the move where if everyone's equal, which one has the higher ceiling? Like you said, Taylor, well, it's not Braxton Jones. Like it's not the answer to what has a higher ceiling for this team, for the now, for the future. And it's the interesting time to, it's the right time to do it. Having the early bye gives you this opportunity to really, over the next, 2 weeks, basically get to work with Theo Benedict at practice and show him what he's doing well, what he's doing wrong, where he can improve and make it better overall. Lauren, do you think, is there any chance Braxton's not on this team by the end of the season? I mean, we've seen, a lot of injuries happening in the NFL. Like, he's not going to go to the Vikings, right? But, the Vikings have a tackle issue. The Chargers have now lost both of their tackles, with Joe Alt having a high ankle sprain. Like, we just saw the Houston Texans trade Cam Robinson, who they paid $12 million to, to the Cleveland Browns for a late-round pick swap. So, I don't think it ends up that way, but Lauren, do you think there's any chance we see Braxton just get moved on from completely?
I think it would have been a higher chance if Karan Amagaji hadn't landed on injured reserve, but now I think they find themselves feeling like, okay, if Theo's starting at left tackle and Ozzie Japillo can't handle backup left tackle spots, like you need Braxton around to potentially play that spot. So I just think the depth value he provides is a little bit too important there, given their lack of alternatives. And I also think there's no guarantee that 2 weeks from now, Theo's just not ready, and he struggles a lot against the Commanders, and maybe they give him time against the Saints, and you just got to go back to Braxton Jones because, hey, it's still just a work in progress for him. And I could see Braxton Jones, because he's still trying to build up strength and mobility from that ankle injury, that maybe a couple weeks off could be really good for him, just to kind of let the body heal a little bit more and not put more wear and tear on it, and come back, whenever that is, and play even a little bit better than he was before he was benched. Because I do think there's almost no risk here in the sense of like, it's not like if you have to put Braxton Jones back in, he's not going to be worse than he was before when you're out there. This isn't like I don't think there's like a locker room leadership kind of thing where once he's benched, well, now you can't go back to him because he's too upset about it or whatever. Like, I think they'll be able to kind of interchange these guys if they need to, but if they do need to, then you'll know on the front end that it was a bad idea to bench him in the first place.
Honestly, that's a good point when it comes to the injury, because obviously both tackles being beat up right now, and you've seen it and how it's affected them. So you definitely want the guys to be healthy and 100%. So maybe the Theo decision isn't a permanent, like Theo is our left tackle moving forward, but more so right now, we feel like Theo can handle some things better than Braxton can right now.
Yeah, I think it's also just Ben Johnson kind of sticking to his word a little bit, going back to 2 weeks ago about competition and practice habits, and we're going to increase those things, and it's not just going to be status quo for this Bears roster, and not that Braxton Jones is necessarily being made an example of, but it's Ben Johnson sticking to his word for the most part of like, we're not just going to roll out the same guys. If you're having better practices, if you're looking better, like you're just understanding the offense better, we're going to make a change, and they did it. And I think that's, as we kind of transition here, talking about positives and negatives of the first 4 weeks, that's one of my biggest positives. It's all the Ben Johnson experience. Yeah. Like everything about Ben Johnson has been everything you can ask for and more. Like, I don't even think he owed the sideline reporter an apology, but like, I appreciate that he did. Like, I appreciate that he owned up to it and how it didn't look good. And yeah, you couldn't hear her, but like having that accountability from your coach, I think we're seeing it in him as a person, as a coach, all of it. It's just, I think so far through 4 weeks, it's everything you could have asked for and more as a Bears fan.
Yeah, just the whole Theo Bennett move in that context, like sends such a positive message to the team of like, hey, you can come here as an undrafted rookie free agent from British Columbia and even spend your whole rookie season on the injured reserve, and you can still earn your way not only onto the roster, but into a competition for left tackle and eventually to be the starting left tackle. Like between him and then, like Ja'Day Walker making the 53 as an undrafted free agent, I think those were the only two, or he was the only rookie undrafted free agent that made the roster this season. But there's a very clear meritocracy that every coach says it's a meritocracy, but we all know in the NFL there's a lot of politics. And if you're Tyler Scott drafted in the 4th round, a lot of teams are just going to keep you because you were the 4th round pick. And sorry, Ja'Day Walker, he was the 4th round pick, so we got to keep him, and you're not going to make the roster. But instead, Ben Johnson is sort of true to that word and say, no, we're going to keep and we're going to play the best players, the players who actually do what we tell them to and what we ask of them, that follow all the steps there, get rewarded. And to have a concrete example of that and not just have it be lip service matters a ton.
Yeah, sing a song in a Speedo, and it definitely helps with yours.
Yes,
it does. It does help. It
gets everyone attention.
It gets everyone on your side a little bit. Lauren, I'll start with the positives. What's the thing that you're most happy about? The most positive thing you've seen through 4 games of this new regime and Caleb Williams in year 2?
Yeah, I think the thing that I've been most encouraged about is how quickly they've been able to find that rhythm and that structure for him in the offense. I think I was coming in feeling like it was going to take longer to develop, and not that it's perfect and perfectly hammered out right now, but the whole point is that, Ben Johnson gives him structure and rules, and that he has to break them sometimes when things break down, but trying to find that mix of leaving the pocket too early or trying to be Superman too much and trying to make everything happen versus just sticking to Ben Johnson's rules. It's really felt like they've struck in that balance really well through 4 games. And I thought it might take, half, 3/4 of a season before we really felt that part actually sinking in and saying, oh, these guys are really seeing each other and reading each other well, but they've advanced in that quicker than I thought they would.
Taylor?
Yeah, I agree in that sense. And I think we talked about it a little bit last week about the going to all different weapons too, and we're seeing that every game where it's nice. It doesn't feel like Caleb has his one security blanket and that's where it goes to. He's spreading the ball really nicely, and to your point, Lauren, and it feels like the entire offense is picking it up, not just Caleb Williams, but all of them. And I mentioned at the top, so mine's going to be the third down, both defense and offense. I think that what they've been able to do there, and I put some numbers on it. For example, when it comes to the defense, the Chicago's worst game was against the Vikings. I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. They were only 3 for 12 on the third down, but 2 of those came in the same drive, and it was a touchdown. And that first touchdown that they scored was one of the conversions for the third down. But since then, they're 7 for 13, 8 for 14, 7 for 16. They have the 4th highest third down conversion rate in the NFL right now. And last year they were 31st at 32.9%. So that is a massive improvement of what they're able to do on third downs. To me, that also speaks to the comfortability in the offense and understanding Ben's offense, and also just how good Ben is at doing some of the things, even when they don't work perfectly. We saw a few plays, maybe not go completely what Ben Johnson probably wanted them to do, but whether it be Caleb making a big play or one of the receivers, they've seen it work out. And then when it comes to that third down defense, opposing teams are only 12 for 40 right now against the Bears, and that's 29.27%, which is first in the NFL. So that's huge, especially considering you haven't had your 2 best cornerbacks out on the field. I think that speaks a lot to Dennis Allen and how he can work the secondaries, and maybe teams are pushing, but then when you get them into those third down positions that seem a little more manageable, they're able to step up and make some big plays.
Yeah, I think the third down one, it's like a historic rate that they're on right now. So it's hard to think that that's going to continue at that level, but it's been very good. I mean, even with the struggles that we'll talk about here shortly with against like Ashton Genty and obviously the Lions game, to be good on third down on both sides of the ball, it's a great point, Taylor. Like that's where you need it. You need your offense and your defense to be great in those spots, and so far they have been. And that's like you said, that's a big change for this organization on both sides of the ball from the Eberflus era. They weren't good really offensively or defensively on third down conversions. I think that's a huge thing for the Bears this season.
Which, side note on that, the Bears last year, because we obviously know that the defense definitely had its really good moments last year, and we'd say it was better last year, even though I'd blame a lot of that on injuries, but they were 13th. So you still went from 13th to first defensively, and then offensively, you went from dead last to 4th so far. So, yeah.
The other one I would point out too as a positive, you guys mentioned Caleb there, but is the development of Roma Dunze. A touchdown in every game. He has looked spectacular in pretty much everything you could have asked for him to do, honestly, and more, as what seems to be clear, like the true wide receiver 1 in this system. And while Caleb's distributing the ball, the touchdown connection that they have is very special. He's coming up with big plays when you need it. He has like that clutch factor as a wide receiver that you need, that we see the great wide receivers have. And still don't know totally like what his ceiling is, but his growth this year, outside of the drops that are still kind of a thing, is still so much better this year than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was going to mention Tyreek Stevenson in that same conversation.
Yeah.
I know it's been a more recent, because the first 2 games weren't great there, but like if thinking about like biggest surprises is how well he's played the last 2 games. Like Rome, we were expecting he would play better, that he would continue to get better. And we thought Caleb would make some real progress here, but like the biggest surprise positive to me is the strides he's made the last 2 weeks. And after the Cowboys game, I was willing to kind of say, oh, well, maybe just one game against a struggling Cowboys offense with CeeDee Lamb. I'm not out there. Like, okay, maybe he just was. Sometimes you just feeling it, I have a good day, but to be able to do it back-to-back games against 2 very different offenses, 2 very different quarterback styles, 2 different systems, like that to me feels like very real concrete progress from a player that we weren't really expecting it from, but are really, really desperate to get it from with all the injuries they've had at cornerback. Like that is exactly what the doctors ordered.
Yeah, big time. And I think I want to say 3 receptions on 12 targets the last 2 games. So one of the stats that I saw that may be wrong but it's one of the ones that I saw floating around. And so I think that's huge. I mean, and it's a guy that had to step up into a very big role when you're talking about one of the top corners in the NFL and having to come in and fill in for him. And you were already getting criticized as if you should even be the cornerback number 2 on the team, and you're able to come in and play the way you have this last couple of weeks. And on everything, you talk about just the coverage and the pass breakups and that, but then the big plays with an interception, that's the type of thing that you want to see your corners making. And so it's been really fun, honestly, to watch him because it was scary when you hear Jalen's going to be out for a while, and then and Kyler hasn't been playing, and that the Kyler thing feels like it's been dragging out a little bit, and you don't know when they're coming back. So that's definitely something that has been very positive in I guess shockingly surprising, honestly, for me.
Before we go to break, we'll get to the negatives on the other side. But R asks here in the chat, Ozzie, one of the 5 best offensive linemen, how do they get him in? Jonah Jackson wasn't at practice today. I wonder if we'll see more offensive line shake up, assuming Darnell Wright, who did not practice today, also is healthy coming out of the bye. Do you guys think there's a path to Ozzie getting on the field at this point this season, or do you think he's going to be kind of stashed, assuming health at this point?
My initial thought is I think he may be stashed unless we see Darnell Wright struggle all year again with injury. I think that may be the path for him to be on the field, because I don't know how you use him other than that. We've already heard Ben Johnson say left tackle wasn't really working for him, and that's why they moved him over to right tackle. So I think if Darnell's still banged up or struggling or gets re-injured, that's when we'll see Ozzie. If not, it's going to be more of a swing tackle situation, since now Theo is the left tackle, it looks like, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not convinced he's one of the 5 best offensive linemen right now. He's probably 7th best offensive lineman right now. If we talk about the new starting 5, and then Braxton Jones is probably still 6. I mean, it's hard to judge Luke Newman and Ryan Bates, I suppose, but I don't think Ozzie Trapilo will have like a consistent role in the lineup, but I do think he can step into that Theo Benedette, like 6th offensive lineman tight end role, which was still like, 5 or 6 snaps over the first couple of games. Like, I think we'll see Ozzie Trapilo play a couple of snaps on offense, just not at either true tackle position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, and we're seeing a lot of teams go with the 6 offensive linemen this year. I saw Dan Orlovsky tweeting about that earlier today. It's becoming more and more prevalent. So I think that's where Ozzie kind of factors in for the most part this season. All right, we'll take our break here. We'll hit if we have any more positives on the other side, but also just the negatives that we've seen and where the Bears can improve the most coming out of the bye week. We'll get to that next here on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Mizzen and Main. You know that saying look good, feel good. The problem is that most dress clothes only check one of those boxes. They look sharp but feel stiff, hot, and high maintenance. That's why there is Mizzen and Main. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel comfortable. They actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago, and they've perfected it ever since. It feels great. It feels like athletic wear, which, look, I mean, we all dress up for work and things like that typically, even though a lot of us work in radio here on this show, so we're not as dressed to the nines as everyone else. But when you got to look good, you want to feel good. Right now, Mizzen and Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com with promo code LOCKEDONNFL20. That's Mizzen, spelled M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Main, MAIN.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. And if you'd rather go shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main in stores in select states. All right, so let's take a look at the negatives. So it's been kind of an up and down. They're 2-2 through 4 games, but there are flaws on the Bears. We just talked about the offensive line quite a bit. I feel like that's kind of a gimme. So how much do you think that this offensive line, with the change that they've made and just the time off the Ben Johnson scheme, how much, Lauren, do you think they can actually improve by the time we get to the Commanders game?
I don't know that I have a lot of confidence in the offensive line itself making a ton of improvement. I think the team as a whole will get better and come out against the Commanders. I think I have more confidence in that against the defense, or on the defense a little bit more than the offense, just because I think generally, like, the left tackle thing is still going to be a question mark. And the more I dig into Drew Dahlman and Jonah Jackson, the more I feel like what we're seeing from them is kind of just who they are. Like, they've been relatively inconsistent pass blockers over the course of their careers, and they might just kind of have to live with, hey, you're going to get a pressure or two on the interior every game, and that's not going to kill you when it's, a team with a pass rush as bad as the Cowboys, but it becomes more of a challenge when it's as good of a pass rush as, the Vikings or even the Raiders in some sense there. So I'm not sure there's going to be some magic fix for the offensive line, although I do wonder if they're going to tweak the running game in terms of play calling and scheme there, and maybe switch to more gap scheme or just try something different, because they haven't been able to find the success kind of trying to stretch it out the way that they thought they could.
Yeah, I agree. I think with the offensive line, it will be more of what can Ben Johnson, what can he kind of configure and change to help? If we talk about Ozzie adding a sixth offensive lineman, how much chip help do you give to the tackles? Does that start to change and things like that? Just because, I mean, there were a few moments also. Cole Kmet had a bad game when it came to, there was a few blocks he missed. And just in general, you talk about some drops he had. That was not a good game. So that's something that you need to be able to count on from your tight ends and your wide receivers and your running backs, and adding to that blocking side of things, because that's something that really made the Lions offense really function. And so I would hope that some of those things start to improve. And those are the things that I would guess would help more than all of a sudden these guys are playing at a top tier level. I do think that, and I used the word gel before because when I've talked to offensive linemen, that's the word that they always use, as it does take time for these guys to gel. But now we're switching again. So there's another new guy on the line. And what does that look like? It seems right now that it may still be Ozzie, at least until Darnell's healthy. So you're still going to have some switch up throughout the season. So I don't know how in sync you get until you can get more than 3 games together with some of these guys. And it doesn't look like that'll happen right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's like asking the players themselves to just be like way, way better is probably too much to ask. But I think just being better, I think they can be overall, and a marginal improvement would be good for the Bears offense, honestly, just to get a little more protection. And specifically, I think in the run blocking is where we could see the most. But Taylor, what you said, I think it ultimately, like, for this offensive line to do better, I think we're going to need to see just Ben Johnson kind of get in his bag a little bit and figure out, how do I help this guy? Like, where are our specific strengths that, we have shown through 4 games, and how do we use that to our advantage? Not just kind of throwing the kitchen sink at these guys and seeing what sticks.
That part is the most fascinating part to me, because like it feels like there's two aspects of this. One, this was Ben Johnson's whole thing was he was going to come in and run the ball really well. Like we thought. I think the narrative was, well, the passing game and Caleb stuff that might take time, but we'll know from the get-go the Bears are going to be able to run the ball with Ben Johnson, of course. And of course, in reality now it's like, oh, the passing game's
the opposite.
It's going to take some time before they can run the ball well. So like that concerns me. And then also I feel like the mixture of like offensive line skill set and running back skill set, there's this weird meshing where, like, Drew Dahlman, outside zone stretch kind of run center from his time in Atlanta. That was kind of what he did best. But then I don't think Joe Tooney gets out in space nearly as well anymore, and might be better off a little more downhill gap scheme runs. And I think DeAndre Swift struggled with the zone early last season, and they switched to more gap scheming like early last season, and the running game got better. So it just feels to me like, I don't know if there's the right mix of like they have different skill sets that don't quite align, where some guys are going to be better at some things and some guys are going to be better at the opposite, and they can't do enough of both. But so somebody's going to get left in the lurch, and they kind of end up in the middle of like trying to do a little bit of everything for everybody and don't really have a good run identity as a result.
What's one of the negative things that you saw from the first 4 weeks that you're most concerned about and want to see the Bears improve the most then coming out of the bye, Lauren?
Yeah, it's the pass rush then for me. I mean, a running game is big there, but the pass rush needs to be better. And we knew that coming in, and we've been kind of like looking for them to do anything to improve it. And they just had like, more free agent tryouts on Tuesday as we're doing this. And it was a couple of defensive tackles, I guess, for some depth there with Grady Jarrett's injury, but like they don't seem to have any sort of sense of urgency to get this pass rush better. And I just saw the stat that, Dayo Dengbo and Montez Sweat rank like 49th and 52nd in how often they're getting double teamed and chipped. Like, these guys are getting a lot of one-on-one pass rushing opportunities. They're not, they're not a top league in double teams and stuff. So they, especially Montez Sweat, like, needs to be able to generate more pressure. And I thought Dennis Allen might be able to do a little bit more. He has been trying some different things, and I think he's making progress in manufacturing a pass rush. But like, at some point, the players have to be better. And it certainly points back to Ryan Poles on like 2 of his biggest additions, Jarrett and Odengbo, have had pretty darn low impacts so far.
Yeah, I think the pass rush in general has to be the biggest one on the team right now. But, and to Lauren's point, we knew that was, I think, starting this off season in the very beginning of the season, everybody probably had edge very far up on their list of things that needed to be fixed. And then honestly, probably in September, edge was still probably pretty high up on the list of things needed to be fixed. It also made me laugh, by the way, Lauren, on that list of the guys they tried out, there also wasn't a corner on there. And I was like, we're running out of corners. Like, no. What is going to happen if another one gets hurt before Jalen and Kyler get back? Luckily, Kyler was out there, I heard today. So hopefully we'll see him after. after this bye. But yeah, I think if I'm going to go another way, just to say something different, I'd still say the return game in general. We've seen Cairo's been nailing them lately, and I'm very proud of him, because there was a few this last week over 50 that I was a little nervous about, and he drilled both of them. So props to him. I think we've seen some really good punts also. I think Torrey Taylor had a couple good ones the other day too. But when it comes to just the return game, I feel like other teams are constantly, when they're actually bringing it out, obviously there's not, if you're calling that fair catch, you're going to get it on the 35. That's what it is. But the guys bringing it out are more so on opposing teams getting it to the 30, 35, 40 each time they're bringing it out, if not more than that. I think the Raiders had a couple to the 50, and then the Bears just aren't. And it's interesting to me, because I did like the Devin Duvernay signing, and I think that in Jacksonville it didn't work well last year, but previous to that, he was one of the guys who could consistently kind of create his own space and get those extra yards in the return game. And I do think that because of that, you're not really getting the ball, and you're not getting the best field position when it comes to those situations. And I think it's something that could improve. That's me nitpicking, because I feel like it's special teams and how much are you talking about the return game, but the return numbers are massive this year. If you look league wide, the average starting spot for each offense is way higher than it was last year, and the Bears are towards the bottom of that. So I don't like that.
I think it's a good one, because we saw what it did for the Raiders. Like, without Josh Blackwell, like, that return that they had is the reason why the Raiders were in position to so easily, have a chance to win the game against the Bears this last weekend. So I think that is like a good one. I would love to see, because I know you have two guys back there. I don't know if they're kicking away from Luther Burden when he is back there, but I would like to see another opportunity to give him the ball and just see what he can do with it as a weapon for this team. So that's one thing I'm with you. Like, I hope we see more Burden, because I think Duvernay's been okay. It's just you're not seeing that explosion. I think he's been much better in punt return than he has been in kick return. I don't know if the statistics would back that up. That's just kind of a gut feeling of watching it. But I'm with you. And then there's the run game overall that's been struggling. It hasn't gotten going. You pointed that out, Lauren. What do you feel like we see coming out of the bye? Because they're not really bringing in running backs either.
Yeah, I Ben Johnson, he had the quote, I don't know if it was post game or if it was Monday's press conference, where he was like, DeAndre Swift is not the problem in the running game. Like, he essentially, like, he's doing nothing wrong but Ben Johnson is saying. And people still keep thinking they're going to do something running back, when at every possible turn they defend DeAndre Swift to the fullest extent. And it's not just like, there's a difference too between not blaming DeAndre Swift and going out of your way to say he is not to blame. Like, they could just be kind of silent on it and say, everybody's got to do a little bit better job. And that could leave the door open for, maybe they could upgrade the running back spot. But they keep insisting, hey, running back, not the big problem here. And so it feels like, well, if your offensive line's not really going to change much, just injury based at this point, and your running back's not going to change much, all that you can change is play calling, scheme, rhythm of the offense kind of stuff. So that feels like the only thing that I can expect to be different is, do they try and get to the running game earlier? Do they try and stick with it more? Just even if you're only getting a couple yards at a time, like, get up to that 20 carry threshold and then maybe break one free in there. Or if it's get DJ Moore the ball in the backfield more. I mean, I guess you could mix Roshan Johnson into that conversation or give it to Kyle Monangai more, but like, you got the guys that you got at this point. So they got to find a way to do something different with the same group.
Yeah, that's the way, and it could go run defense too. Both of those two things right now are struggling. It's just pretty much this is going to be the team at this point where everyone's saying, hey, if we can't get the run game going, don't worry, we play the Bears coming up in week whatever. And that's going to be the conversation. Now, 240 yards on the ground against the Raiders is insane. And I get it, it's Ashton Genty, but he also was averaging, I think it was like under 3 yards per carry before that game. And then he just went off. And it was bound to happen at some point if we know who Ashton Genty is. But I think both sides of that has to be fixed. And the run game, I don't know. I don't really know the answer, because it just feels like there'll be moments where you feel like things start to click, and then you just see Swift run into the back of his offensive lineman again. And you're like, why does this keep happening? I don't understand. And then Kyle Monangai would have a couple good runs, and he would, not saying it was like anything massive, but I know there was some where you're like 3, 4, 5 yards. Okay, let's take that. But then there'd be one where he's getting stuffed too. So I can't quite figure it out. And all the PFF stats say the run blocking is way better than what we feel the run blocking is. So that's why it's really hard to tell for me what exactly the issue is. But I do feel like, to Lauren's point, this is what Ben Johnson does. So I feel like I'm just putting all my faith in him that he'll figure something out to get that going at some point this season. Maybe people get scared enough to Caleb where they don't want, they're like, all right, well, we don't want Caleb throwing on us. So they kind of let the run get going defensively.
Yeah, I pointed out, and I'm rewatching the game. The two plays in the fourth quarter that really stood out to me again in the run game were the dive pitches. I don't even know that's the best way to describe it, but it's not a full pitch, but like they're tossing it to Monangai, and he's just going right up the middle, but he's having the extra momentum as he's running to get the ball, and he was getting 5 yards. One of them was good. One of them got called back on, I think, a holding penalty. So that's something I'm looking for. And then I guess to kind of full circle this thing to how we started the show, I wonder if that's part of the reason why we're seeing a left tackle change, is specifically for the run game. Like, it's like if Braxton and Jones and Theo Bennett are equal at pass blocking, but Theo is in their mind better at run blocking, and that might be honestly the real reason why we're seeing a change at the offensive line. At least that's what I can hope for at this point. All right, we'll take our break here. When we get back, the defense, maybe it's getting healthy. We're seeing a couple guys get back at practice today. How much better can they be in the run game, in the pass game, all of that as these guys start to return? We'll get to the next here on the Bears Squad Show.
The Bears Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, place down just $5, and if it hits, not only do you get the winnings from your $5 bet, but you'll unlock $300 in extra bonus bets to use all across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got just a little something riding on the action, especially this Sunday when the Bears are off and you'll just get whatever game is broadcast on your local stations. You might not have that much of an interest in the two teams, but if you have a little money on the game, now all of a sudden you're dialed in. It makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
A couple interesting updates today that could affect the Bears. We might not see Lamar Jackson on the other side of the bye. Going to miss 2 to 3 weeks. I think it's 4 weeks away, technically, the Bears game versus the Ravens. But that's going to be something really interesting to keep an eye on. I mean, you've got Jaden Daniels. I think it still feels very up in the air. So it could be the Mariota show, and then maybe Cooper Rush coming out of the bye week. The Bears season could feel very different in a couple weeks if these quarterback injuries play out that way, Lauren.
And Jake Browning after that too. I mean,
yeah,
he stinks. Guys, he might be the worst quarterback I've ever seen. He is awful.
Not against the Jags.
I know, but like you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase out there. Like, just throw it in the air, dude. Like, find a way.
I remember the stat when Joe Burrow went down. They said Jake Browning has had like, I don't know, 3 or 4 games that are 350 passing yards in the last 4 years, the same number as Patrick Mahomes. Like he and Patrick Mahomes had the same number of like 300 plus yard games in the last couple of seasons, to show that like those stat numbers are not always a great reflection of players, especially nowadays this season when we're seeing passing yardage total all around the NFL down a lot more. So I think people get on it when like Caleb Williams is, barely hitting 200 yards or whatever in a game. It's like, oh, that wasn't very good, but you got to look around and see, hey, everyone's passing less, in part because defenses have changed, and also that field position we talked about earlier from the kick return game being better. Teams are just having fewer yards to go downfield, so there's fewer yards to gain.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Kickers are making 65-yard field goals now, so a lot of times they're not. Maybe before you're going for those fourth downs more than, because now you're like, oh, now our kicker can make it. It's fine. So I think there's a lot of reasons. I've never been the biggest fan of just using passing yards for any sort to back anything up. It's just, I'm like, completion percentage, I think, is something you need to look at, and that's something that's getting higher and higher. I think for a while, the guys that had like 62, 63, you're like, this is a good completion percentage. Now you're getting close to 70. If you're not close to 70, completing almost 70% of your passes, then people think you're having some struggles. So the yardage it always bothered me a little bit. That's why the marking, which is crazy because the Bears haven't done it with the 4,000 yards, but I always was like, who cares? If you're not winning games, I don't care if you pass for 350 yards.
Yeah, the teams that are losing pass more. So you don't want to have to be, that's how Jake Browning has those 300 plus yard games, because they were losing and had to throw a lot. Like, that's the secret.
I did just use my calculator to see where Caleb was at projection wise. If he stays on his current pace,
Oh, I did it yesterday.
he'll fall 60 yards short of 4,000 yards. So he's
Yeah.
right on the edge there as an on pace guy.
I had the number somewhere. I don't know where I wrote him down. I want to say it's like 263 a game he would have to do, and then 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns a game, 263 would hit him. The 4,030 is pretty much. I think it was right about that.
Yeah, and look, honestly, I care more about touchdowns than I do about
Yeah.
yards. If the Bears end up somehow above 500 this season, and Roma Dunze's catching a touchdown, and
Every game.
and 14 of 17 games, I won't hold him to 17 of 17. But and Caleb doesn't hit 4,000, I think we'll be feeling okay. So we saw Kyler Gordon return to practice today. I think TJ Edwards as well. Grady Jarrett did not. Darnell Wright did not. But the defense does seem to be, on track to getting a little bit healthier. Taylor pointed out earlier, the Kyler Gordon thing's kind of strange. He's been questionable virtually every week, but not playing. But it does feel like you're going to see him return. Just kind of a guess, in my opinion, coming out of the bye. Same thing with TJ Edwards. So, Lauren, how do you feel about this defense as it gets healthier versus what it is now?
I think this will be a sneaky. I mean, I guess I don't know how sneaky it is, but I think it's sneakier than people might realize. Improvement to the run defense when Kyler Gordon gets back. Like you might think, well, slot cornerback, but like Dennis Allen plays so much nickel defense, especially because TJ Edwards has been out, so they don't want to put more backup linebackers on the field. And Gordon has always been really good against the run. TJ Edwards has too. Like we all expect Edwards back, run defense should improve a little bit, but I think Gordon is sort of the more unexpected or the sneakier. Like, no, he's a really big factor in the running game, especially with how much nickel they play and how close to the line of scrimmage he is. And I think Nick McLeod has been a bigger issue there than anyone's fully paying attention to, because it's like, oh, it's Nick McLeod, like, whatever, who cares? But I think he and Nashawn Wright have been particularly bad in run defense there. So having Gordon back there to sort of add more depth and just be a great running player there, because Stevenson has played a lot better in the running game too. So I really think those two guys, Edwards and Gordon coming back, it's going to go a long way there. It's not going to solve everything because defensive line is still a problem in there, especially edge rushers not named Montez Sweat are not holding edges very well at all in the running game. So not all solved, but I think it will go a long way towards preventing like those big Ashton Genty type plays.
Yeah, I think that, if you talk to any team, I think the majority of teams in the NFL would tell you if they're missing their 2 top corners and their best linebacker, that their defense would change a little bit. And so I'm expecting, honestly, when those 3 guys are back on the field and healthy, this to look pretty significantly different. And I'm not saying right away, because I do think it may take a little bit of time to start getting back in that rhythm. Like we've seen already, it was really rough in the beginning, and then you've seen some moments where you're like, all right, the secondary is starting to click a little bit, and things were starting to look a little better, especially in the second half of this last week, or even the second half of the Dallas game too. Even Javonte Williams was like running all over in the beginning. They figured out how to slow him down a little bit and contain some of their weapons. So I honestly think getting those 3 guys, and Jalen's going to be a while. So right now you're counting on Kyler and TJ to make those differences, but I still think those 2 alone make a difference. I'd really like to see Grady Jarrett out there healthy. I think that also is another piece. And I know we weren't super impressed early when he was, but I feel like he's honestly been kind of banged up all year so far. So I would like to see a healthy Grady and see what that does for the interior too. But I do think just getting healthy automatically improve. It's not, I feel like it has to improve it. These are guys that make massive plays constantly, and one of the highest paid nickel corners in the league. I know it was Jordan Lewis for a little bit, and I think Kyler took it over like a week later. So
yeah, I'm really curious what they're going to do with Kyler when he gets back. Like with on the, like, is there a chance we see him on the outside in some capacity? Just like when it's a passing situation, are you looking for a specific matchup for Dennis Allen to say, hey, he's going to play more on the outside here, maybe against Deebo Samuel, against Washington? Like, is there a specific matchup that we see? I'm just excited to see Kyler Gordon play football again. Like, it feels like it's been a year and a half at this point since we've seen Kyler Gordon. Maybe it has been, honestly, but I think I'm with you guys. I don't have like the highest of expectations for the Bears defense when it gets back, because I think, to your point, Lauren, like the problems do still ultimately reside up front for this team, but it can't get any worse with Kyler Gordon and TJ Edwards back on the field, and they returned to practice today, at least to some portion. Brad Biggs said, but Colson Loveland did as well. So like hopefully that's the biggest hope, I think, for the Bears, that they just need to get healthy coming out of the bye week, and we can start to see more of what this team is actually supposed to look like.
And I think we're going to see Dennis Allen take a hard look at what he's doing from a coverage standpoint too, because we already saw a pretty major shift against the Raiders, and it's probably more matchup dependent than anything. But the first 3 weeks of the season, they were a lot more 2-deep coverages, a lot of cover 2, cover 4, and then some 2-man in there, and they wouldn't go to as much single deep stuff, but they did a lot more against the Raiders and let Kevin Byard be in the middle of the field, and he got those 2 big interceptions, put Brisker up by the limit of scrimmage a lot more and not back deep, and that worked pretty well for him. But you can't do that against some of the great offenses. I don't know that I'd be doing that against maybe even Washington Commanders. If Jaden Daniels is back and they're going to be throwing downfield, maybe I want the 2 safeties back there again. But it'll be interesting because now he kind of has tape of 2 very different approaches from his defense. I think the single deep allowed him to blitz a little bit more and try and get Geno Smith a little bit more disrupted up front. So there's sort of the pros and cons he has to weigh of like, do I want to load up the box a little bit more so I can blitz and stop the run better, but then risk Nashawn Wright one-on-one with their top receiver over there? Or if Kyler Gordon comes back and TJ Edwards is back, do I trust a little bit more that, hey, we can leave a little bit less help on the back end because we know that we've got better players to pass things off in zone?
Have we seen Kyler play outside for us?
Not really.
I don't think so.
No, that's why I just wonder, like, if Dennis Allen will get creative without Jalen Johnson out there.
And I think it's we'll see the nickel out there a ton. So there's it's not like you're not seeing Kyler out on the field, but I don't think there's a world where you wouldn't want Tyreek and Kyler on the field pretty much every single snap.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking back over when he was a rookie, he played on the outside some. Okay. I mean, he's still primarily a slot player, but he played a lot of games where I'm not even gonna say 50-50, but maybe, a third outside and 2/3 inside. And then over the last couple of seasons, there will be occasional plays when a receiver's in motion and he follows them to wide corner. So like you'll see, a snap or 2 in a game when he's lined up out wide, but it wasn't like he was necessarily put there intentionally, but just the flow of the play, like, all right, just follow him to that spot. Or maybe it's more so the outside receiver motions across and Jalen Johnson stays with him. So Gordon's left as the outside guy on that side of the ball. So he's done it a little bit, but it's been a while, but I think he's certainly capable.
Before we get to the little running back game we're going to do, because I disagree with Ben Johnson about DeAndre Swift being the problem. So we're going to play my game anyways. Coming out of the bye, do you expect the defense to take bigger strides or the offense to take bigger strides the rest of the season?
That's a good question. Yeah. I think that it depends how you look at it, because I want to say that I'm more impressed by the offense, and I'm more impressed at where they are already through 4 weeks. And I think I'm more disappointed in the defense. I came in
it's a lower bar.
Yeah. And like, I hate even saying that because I really do think it's injury based. I think that if Jalen and Kyler and TJ have been playing these first 4 weeks, we're probably not as critical. Maybe we're still critical on the pass rush, but we're not talking about some of the other things, maybe the run defense as bad, or some of the secondary outside of Tyreek Stevenson and the safeties. But I do think that because that bar was so high in how they've performed, I'm hoping that we start to see, with Kyler back and TJ back, that take a bigger leap quicker, because I think those are more instantaneous changes you can make. Offensively, the change we're going to see is Theo Benedette, and how confident am I that all of a sudden takes this offense to the next level? I'm not sure. But I also, with all of that being said, I'm very confident in the first 4 weeks of how we've seen this offense functioning and how comfortable Caleb is already. And I just expect that to grow. Like, I don't see that regressing at this point. I think the connection he has with his weapons is there. If you can run the ball, if you can find some miracle way to start running the ball, this offense could be honestly pretty dangerous in times, because that's just something that's not there right now. So I think it's very predictable. Teams know we haven't been able to run the ball. So even with that, Caleb's still being able to do what he's been able to do. So imagine if all of a sudden we're rushing for 100 yards, 110 yards a game, and you kind of have that extra element to the offense. So I want to say I'm expecting both to improve and continue to improve, but I think the defense with the players coming back can take the bigger, quicker jump.
Yeah, it almost makes it an unfair comparison here, because like one side is getting massive reinforcements, the other side is swapping left tackles and saying like, okay, which one's going to get better? Which one's going to get more better? The one that swapped left tackles or brought back two, not Pro Bowl caliber players, but like two of their best starters. Like, yeah, the defense is probably going to be the one that shows more improvement. But I'm right there with you, Taylor, that like I think the offense has shown you more from the starts. They also have less room to, they're starting from a higher place, so it's unfair to expect like a massive leap from them. But as long as we kind of keep seeing that steady improvement on both sides, you feel like things are headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I do want to make the argument for the offense though. Like even though you're getting good defensive players back, and I think the flaws on both sides in the trenches on the offensive line, defensive line, they're so clear. But what we're seeing from Caleb from week to week, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because we see it happen with young quarterbacks all the time. We start anointing these guys, but we're seeing such positive play, I think, and growth from Caleb Williams. I do feel like by the end of the season that no matter how much better the defense gets, I think the offense can still honestly surpass them. And it's a great point. So like if they get any semblance of a run game, like I think they are averaging technically over 100 yards per game. I don't know how running the ball. I think I think they have 409 rushing yards as a team this season. Doesn't feel like that. So I'd like it to feel like they're easily getting 100 yards. Maybe from their running backs would be nice. Not Caleb Williams having to do a lot of the magic. But I think the offense can still take some huge strides this year that no matter what the defense does, that they can end up on the other side. All right.
Let me ask you guys really quick. If I were to tell you between the edge position and offensive line, running back, what would your rankings be of highest concern to least? And there's concern in all, but just of those three.
I think my highest is the defensive line because it's been invested in, and I can hold out hope for Theo Benedict and Ozzie if he has to play, and veterans gelling on the offensive line. I can hold out hope for Kyle Monangai, maybe becoming the primary ball carrier at some point this season, and Ben Johnson's scheme on offense working better. So I think my highest level of concern, I would go the defensive line, then the offensive line, and then I'd probably go running back last.
Yeah, I'd match you there, where it's like offensive line, you can say, well, they're still gelling. They still need more time together. I'm not sure that time is going to fix the defensive line. The defensive line feels more like just got to hope that your good players start playing good again, whereas offensive line, you feel like there's maybe some more concrete steps towards improvement. And I think running back just by comparison is just the least worrisome of the three. They'll be all right. If the offensive line was better, I don't think we'd be that worried about DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai.
Yeah.
Is your list the same then, Taylor?
Yeah, mine would be the same.
All right, we'll take our last break. We're going to play a little game here. I'm going to throw some running back names of guys who could be on the market. I can't wait to hear Taylor's take on if Maurice Jones-Drew has good takes or not, because he threw some wild names out there. But we'll get into that next year on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. Rugiet Go Long isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer. The effects can last up to 36 hours. So that's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. And the process is simple, which is great for all of us. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. And if you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Make sure you use our promo code so that way they know that we sent you. All right, so I'm going to throw some names at you guys here for who the Bears could acquire if they wanted to add to the running back room. Because I disagree with Ben Johnson. He got rid of DeAndre Swift as fast as he could in Detroit. Like as fast as he could. He went and got Jahmyr Gibbs. He went and got David Montgomery. So I've got some lesser names, some bigger names on here. I'm going to start with one that I am familiar with that's in my backyard right now because I do work in radio in Houston. We've seen Dameon Pierce be inactive for the Houston Texans. They're clearly handing it off to their young rookie running back, Woody Marks. But it's a guy that, like when he was a rookie, was very successful running downhill. So would you be open to Dameon Pierce? Maybe like a 1 to 10 scale of 1, I'm not interested at all, to 10, yes, absolutely, please do this.
Interested in giving up draft capital to acquire said player? Because that's a big part of this equation. It's one thing.
Yeah.
If this guy's a free agent, my interest is a certain height. And if he's a trade candidate, it's a lot lower.
Let's say trade, but like low level picks here.
Low level picks.
Late round pick swap.
I'm maybe not going to be very good at this game because I think I'm going to in some ways, I think if you picked up Saquon Barkley and put him in the Chicago Bears offense, I don't think it's a top 10 rushing offense in the NFL. It's a lot better than it is today, but I don't think it's a top 10 rushing offense in the NFL. There's a lot of problems up front and Swift. So, I think, does Dameon Pierce make the Bears backfield better? Yeah, absolutely. Is that worth a 7th round pick? Sure. Yeah. But I mean, I 1 to 10 interest. I don't know, a 4.
Okay. Taylor?
Yeah, I was about to say probably 4 or 5. And I like Damian Pierce. I feel like obviously we haven't seen him this year much at all, and last year I think he didn't even get up to 300 yards, but he has multiple touchdowns in every season that he has been a running back. And I do think there's definitely positives there, but I do think because of the trade aspect that definitely factors into the decision for this one. So yeah, I was going to say like 5.
Okay. So let's say for this next one, the Tennessee Titans call you and they ask for a 5th round pick for Tony Pollard because the Titans are going nowhere fast. That team is atrocious.
I say yes. You don't even
Tony
have to
Pollard.
finish that. Tony Pollard is one of my personal favorite running backs in the NFL. People don't totally understand it, but there's just something I love about Pollard. He's my fantasy quarterback in like every fantasy league I have. And you just haven't seen much, but I think that's because this year, because I think the Titans offense is just, I mean, Cam Ward said it himself. It's ass. So
Yeah.
I do think that immediately Tony Pollard makes this offense better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree he makes his offense better, but a 5th round pick for a $9 million running back who like are the Bears winning more games with Tony Pollard added to this roster right now? I think the running game is improved, but is there a game they win because Tony Pollard is here that they wouldn't have won had they not traded for Tony Pollard? And I also like Tony Pollard a lot. I'm not convinced that a 5th round pick is quite where not that 5th round picks are so valuable, but it's enough where I'm like, I just have a little trouble giving up that much for a running back who I do like, but I just feel like isn't solving enough of the problem here. Like if he was a little bit more dynamic as a pass catcher, I mean, he's not a bad pass catcher at all, but like I'd like a fully well-rounded back who can do a little bit of everything for me. Maybe I can talk myself into it a little bit more, but if he's going to be splitting time with DeAndre Swift anyway, because presumably you're not just fully benching Swift, you're kind of rotating these guys in together. And so I still feel like you're getting 10 good carries of him and then 10 mediocre carries of Swift. And that gets you an extra, 40 yards in a game. That helps, but I'm not quite there on a 5th round pick.
What if they're like, get rid of Swift for picks?
Like essentially you make it a net neutral kind of thing. Like you dump Swift for a pick and you use that pick to get Pollard and maybe you drop around in there. I would do that. I think I would do that because there's a salary cap savings aspect of it that you're not giving up a lot of draft capital and maybe you break even on the salary cap or whatever it ends up being. That to me definitely makes this Bears team better. I'm on board with that.
Okay, so I think the next three names here are going to be more of like, even with the struggles of the offensive line, I think there's an argument that it can make the Bears much better. Now, this one's going to come at a little heftier price tag. I don't know what the draft cap would be, but we've seen Kendry Miller start to become a lot more important for the New Orleans Saints. Another team that feels like they might move on from guys. We've seen Ryan Poles be aggressive at the deadline before. Lauren, how would you feel if the New Orleans Saints called you about Alvin Kamara?
I'd like it conceptually, but I'm concerned because Kamara has shown a decent amount of aging here, and I know durability has been a little bit of a question mark in there as well in recent seasons. So like if this were 2 years ago, I signed me up. Like I think he's a dynamic enough back out of the backfield that certainly has a pass catching weapon that he can be an all-around guy and fill some of that hole. But now 31, just 30, just turned 30 this offseason. Like it's such a short-term investment there that like at least Pollard I feel like I'd get a couple of years out of, but Kamara feels like I'm kind of renting him for the rest of this season, and the rest of the season might not be important enough to mortgage even a little bit of the future for.
Yeah, I'm kind of there. I've always, not always, let's say the last few years I've been weird on Kamara just because I feel like the age has started to show in the durability and on the field. I also just think it's been so like boom or bust with Kamara. Like he has a game with like 3 touchdowns and almost 200 yards, or he has a game with 30 yards, and there's no really in between for him. And so I feel like that explosiveness is awesome, but if you're only getting that for 5 games, is it really ultimately changing your team for the entire season? And then to that point beyond that.
Yeah, so the next 2 guys are much younger, where it's not just a short-term investment. It is a long-term investment. Even with the Braylon Allen injury, there's a lot of people that think the Jets could potentially move on from Breece Hall, which surprises me a little bit. He was on Maurice Jones-Drew did a top 5 trade candidate list. He was also on this list along with Tony Pollard and Kamara. Breece Hall is an interesting one because kind of what you were saying, Lauren, like he does a little bit of everything. And we've seen some real production from him with the Jets. That's one where I would be very pro, honestly, seeing the Bears go out and make a move like that. Because I do think for the long term, it can help address your running back room. So maybe it doesn't help you a lot this year, but I think it does set you up for some more success if he were to be available actually at the deadline this year.
Taylor, you want to start?
Oh yeah, it's funny because I feel like I feel like all offseason we were kind of hearing those rumors of were the Jets keeping Breece Hall, what was going on with that situation. So I'm not totally shocked that maybe that's still in the realm, especially with how they look right now. They still look like they're not a running back that's going to save them away from winning some football games right now. So a team, if the Bears feel that way, if Ben Johnson is having conversations with Ryan Poles saying, like, I really think if we get this run game going, we can make the postseason, then I think that the Breece Hall move is something that you would do.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I'm going to defer to Ben Johnson on those decisions. I think the Breece Hall thing is tricky because, like, knowing that he's entering free agency and that I need to negotiate a contract with him lowers the draft price I would give, and also would be a contingency for me in the deal. Like, I need to know what that contract's going to be. I'm not going to trade for him and then figure it out at the end of the year how much that's going to cost me. Like, I need to know, just because I don't like the idea of giving up a running back or giving up a draft pick for the right to pay a running back a lot of money. Like, it's one thing to give up a draft pick to get the right to pay Montez Sweat a lot of money because you feel like, well, it's hard. Young edge rushers that are good don't usually hit the market. You usually have to trade for them in some capacity, but we see running backs all the time hit the market that end up being really good. And I think about, Kenneth Walker is set to hit free agency, and Breece Hall is going to hit free. If you don't trade for him, presumably he's going to hit free agency also. So you're just trading for the right to get first negotiations with him. And so if that price is decent as a contract number, and then you don't have to give up much because it's an expiring contract, sure, I'd give up a 6th or 7th round pick to secure my running back of the future if Ben Johnson is convinced this is the guy I need. But if he looks at it and says, well, Kenneth Walker might be just as good, or, J.K. Dobbins will be a free agent again. He's running really well for the Broncos right now, so maybe they want to give him another run. I mean, there's a few different running backs that are coming up in the free agent market, plus you got the NFL draft. It just feels like a position where I'm not desperate to feel like I got to go get my guy of the future right now in the middle of the season, because I'll have a lot of different opportunities to do so if I really feel the need.
I think you made a good point there too, Lauren, at first, of just like if they approached a running back trade in any capacity, honestly, if they ever do it again the way they did with Montez Sweat, where like he was traded for and not signed immediately, and it's like, what's going on here? Like, how did you acquire this guy and not have a contract ironed out? And eventually, obviously, they did. I don't know if it's worked out for them necessarily, but it's you can't take that approach. I think specifically at the running back room, and free agency probably is a bigger picture. So now, Taylor, I just need you to explain to me, why does Maurice Jones-Drew have Travis Etienne on this list?
I think he just
that seems crazy to me. Like, why would the Jags trade Travis Etienne? Because sign me up for that one too if it was available. Yeah,
there's no way for that. I mean, it would be a different conversation, I think, if Tank Bigsby was still on the team. Now, Bashal Tuins ran really well, and it does seem like he's going to be kind of that back of the future. And he's more of the downhill runner, force missed tackles type of back. And Etienne's definitely more of the more finesse style, go on the perimeter type of runner. He's kind of more of that. And that was the issue last year, is they tried to force Etienne into this position to be the type of running back that it just doesn't work for him. Kind of honestly what we've seen with Swift. There's certain things that certain running backs can do. And if you try to force them to do other things, it doesn't always work for them. But I don't totally get it, because I also think, Etienne's having an insane season. So I think the Jags are looking at this as, we have this running back room that has kind of this double-headed sword of running backs that can do multiple things. And Etienne had already got his 5th-year option too, that was figured out with Trent Baalke. So they don't even have to worry about that right away. Granted, I think conversations would be had. It's funny because we did here in Jacksonville, we did our big hot takes or bold whatever, and back in June, and mine was that Travis Etienne was about to have his resurgence year, and we were going to see the 2022 Travis Etienne again, and it's happening. I just thought they loved Tank so much that Etienne was going to be the one traded. I said I think by week 6 Etienne's gone, but we're looking at him as this back that you are liking again. And it went opposite. Some of that was locker room stuff. They didn't like Tank in the locker room, but that would be wild. Honestly, it would be insane because I feel like Travis Etienne fits Liam Cohen's offenses so well, and you could just see. I mean, he's shining this year, but I love it. I love Travis Etienne.
Yeah. Just kind of wrap around a big picture thing, like, and the deadline's farther away, so we'll get closer and closer to this. But Lauren, I get the sense that in general, like, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just guessing here. Okay, you haven't loved the way Ryan Poles has made deals at the deadline so far.
I mean, it's such a small sample size, but I mean, we've got like Chase Claypool and Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
Other deadline deals we've seen.
I think those are the two.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not here to necessarily say Poles is terrible at the deadline. It's more so like this 2025 season is not the go all in to boost this year because we're making the big playoff push right now. Like, this is still a year of wanting to plan for the future and like building towards making 2026 the best season possible. So like losing a 7th round pick in 2026, not going to hurt you that much that year. But even as high as a 5th round pick, like that could be the difference between trading up in the 2nd round or not being able to trade up and get the guy. You know, it's just a little bit more valuable of a piece where I'm not really willing to mortgage much of that future at all. Like, unless the player I'm bringing in is truly a part of that long-term future. And that's probably the hardest for me at running back compared to any, like, I'd trade for that for a young edge rusher. Like, if the Giants were going to give up one of their young edge rushers, that is another Montez Sweat trade. You're giving a future to give a guy a long-term contract because he's not going to hit the open market. Like, I'm more on board with that because the player you're adding is going to be, in theory, better than the draft pick you just gave up. But a running back who might hit free agency anyway, like, I can wait and be patient.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think Ben Johnson, where he comes from, especially with his time in Detroit and how they handled all of that, I think he has probably putting his input. And he's like, look, first of all, Caleb already has a better start to his career record-wise than we saw Jared Goff in his first year with Ben Johnson. But I think I could see him saying, just be a little patient, look towards the draft, look at some of these running backs that are going to be free agents, because I mean, they got David Montgomery to choose them over being a Bear. And I think that Ben Johnson's probably confident that he could get another running back to do the same thing. And then you find one that you really like in the draft, if Kyle Monangai isn't the guy that they feel they could develop into something else. So I think having somebody like Ben who has the experience of saying, like, slow your roll, because we know Ryan Poles can be a little aggressive at times when maybe he should sit back and just watch things unfold. And we saw the whole thing with Ian Cunningham telling him to calm down with the Rome Odunze thing. And look, I love Rome, and I'm glad we had Rome, and thank you Atlanta Falcons for drafting Michael Penix so we could get Rome. But sometimes as a general manager, you do have to be a little patient and let things come to you. And that hasn't been Ryan Poles' strength. So maybe Ben Johnson can talk some of that into him of like, let me show you how we built this. It wasn't a forced product, you know? Also, you can draft one in the top 5 when people criticize you if you think it's the right guy.
Yeah, everyone take a deep breath and it'll be okay. Yeah. Well, we'll be back next Tuesday after the bye. We will be taking a look at what the rest of the Bears season looks like, potentially facing a lot of backup quarterbacks coming out of the bye. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Bears schedule actually unfolds, because it will like weirdly change expectations for the Chicago Bears if you happen to run out a stretch of Mariota, Cooper Rush, Jake Browning instead of Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. It'll feel a little bit different than we were thinking before the start of the season.
It's crazy because that could extend even farther when you go to like the Giants and Jackson Dart and maybe the Vikings and Carson Wentz. Like Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers might be the next true starting quarterback the Bears face, and that's 12.
Yeah, that's insane. Actually,
it's gonna be well. Look, it's an early buy. I think it all kind of comes at the right time. It's all the stuff that we were talking about is the Bears need to improve on. So that will wrap it up for us. You can check out Lauren Monday through Friday right here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to YouTube, also to wherever you get your podcasts on Apple and Spotify. So we'll be back with you guys next Tuesday. Thank you all for hanging out with us here live in the chat and everyone listening on all the audio platforms. We will talk to you guys next week. Peace.